Nick Scrip, NFL content lead for Fantrax, here to talk 2025 NFL draft class, my guys. These are guys I am higher on than consensus that I have fantasy football confidence in prior to this year's NFL draft. I have 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. So the first running back on my list here is Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. He just had 3 years of very good production, 1,567 rushing yards and 16 rushing touchdowns in 2022 at Ole Miss. In 2023, again at Ole Miss, 1,158 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. And then in 2024 at Ohio State with TreVeyon Henderson, 1,060 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so watching this guy destroy Notre Dame in the national championship made me not like him, but like him even more. He had 121 scrimmage yards and 3 total touchdowns in that game. Judkins has NFL-ready physicality, which is evident by his contact aggression, size, how he absorbs hits, his power running, and the way he just breaks tackles. Judkins has great initial burst and acceleration along with quick feet for sharp cuts. Judkins displays the combination of patience and efficiency in space with great ball security. He has a compact build at 6 foot, 219 pounds, which adds to his great contact balance. He has clear rushing touchdown and rushing yardage upside. He was highly productive in each of his college seasons. The NFL comp I like for him, maybe high end here, but Joe Mixon. The other running back I want to talk about is Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. Had a great 2024 in 13 games, 1,711 rushing yards and 21 rushing touchdowns, 45 catches for 605 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. His dynamic abilities were on full display in this year's Peach Bowl against number 5 Texas. 30 carries for 143 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 8 catches for 99 receiving yards, and a 42 passing yard touchdown. He's not going to do that every day, but obviously this guy is very skilled, very athletic. He was 5th in the Heisman this past season. Skattebo, he's a muscular and compact 5'9", 219 pounds. He's a master at breaking tackles, and he makes guys miss often. If you go to his film or his YouTube reel, you'll see that nonstop. He adds a ton of yards after contact. The leg drives for extra yards. Great footwork. He has quick burst. He may not be, a future workhorse in the NFL, but I think he brings bite and playmaking abilities where he could be a consistent complement. I think a high-end NFL comp I saw was Mark Ingram. More realistic might be a Jaylen Warren. So Judkins is a guy that I can see stepping in and taking over a running back 1 role for a team depending on his landing spot. Skattebo more of a complement back that I could be a sleeper in this year's draft, again, depending on the landing spot. So for the wide receiver position, I want to talk Tet McMillan out of Arizona, who a lot of people have him as the wide receiver 1, but also there's a lot of people that doubt McMillan, and there's a lot of people that I think are fading him. And I think this could be some prospect fatigue. I think this is trying to be hot takey, not liking the top guy. And for me, he is the top guy. In 2023, 90 catches for 1,402 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Then in 2024, 84 catches for 1,319 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. That's 2 massively productive seasons in a row. If you look at what he did across the landscape, they're number 3 in receiving yards for 2024 and number 5 in receiving yards in 2023. He's Arizona's all-time leader in that category. McMillan uses his size effectively, and he has good hands, a great catch radius, body control, 50-50 ball winning upside, possession wide receiver traits. He's a playmaker, and that's evident by his ball tracking qualities on the deep throws, the run after catch upside, and elite ball tracking skills. Tet is a 3-level wide receiver with positional versatility. The numbers above that I talked about make it clear that Tet was a consistently high statistical producer with yardage and touchdown upside, and I think he's going to be a future red zone threat. 6'5", 210, shows great football IQ and dominating traits through the air. Again, wide receiver 1 of this class. I think even if Travis Hunter, for me, played wide receiver full-time, I think it'd be more of a 1A, 1B, with McMillan still being my 1 of this class. I think he's just a future alpha. wide receiver one. And I think he's a guy that could be a top 10 pick this year, top 12 pick, depending on who wants to take that chance. There's some teams that clearly could use him as their number one. A lot of NFL comps have been like Drake London, Mike Evans. I think, he's a guy that has traits of those two, but I think if you look at like what those two guys bring to the NFL and kind of their DNA, he just has those, the DNA of those kind of guys. So the next one, I want to talk about Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Just very, very productive through his career. The two big seasons, 74 catches for 1,151 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns in 2022. In 2024, 81 catches for 1,011 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. There's been a lot of Ohio State wide receivers turned great NFL players. You go down that list. He tops them all for career receiving yards. So he is Ohio State's all-time leader in receiving yards. And that list of wide receivers that he's above is very good. Egbuka can play both inside and outside, but primarily is a slot wide receiver with natural route running fluidity. He shows toughness and competitiveness with racking up the yards after the catch. He's a reliable hands catcher. Egbuka works in traffic. He attacks the ball. He's strong. He's physical. He competes in blocking. Has ball tracking skills and body adjustment comfort. He looks very safe as a prospect. I think if we're like taking shots on guys and we want a guy with like a safe floor, but he could be a high ceiling sort of player, I think that's Egbuka. I think he's going to be a very safe slot outlet for his future NFL quarterback. An optimistic comp in the NFL, I think, would be Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously, guys from the same program, but I think a JSN type of wide receiver that is just a great route runner, a guy that just gets open, makes the plays, very reliable. Realistic, I think, would be, lower end would be Tyler Boyd, which, sounds like I'm lowballing him, but Tyler Boyd was a very reliable slot wide receiver for the Bengals for years. But Egbuka, again, a guy that I feel like could be drafted at the end of the first round, and he could, land in a spot where he sees high target volume, which he's, used to at Ohio State. The other wide receiver I want to mention is Tre Harris out of Ole Miss. I think he's had 3 solid years of production. If we go back to 2022, 935 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. In 2023, 985 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. In 2024, 1,030 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. And that was in 8 games. Harris is a deep ball threat with elite ball tracking down the field. He has alignment versatility with solid field awareness, size, length, natural hands, body control, a great catch radius, and contested catch qualities. It gives him upside, right? Those are qualities you look at, for in an upside wide receiver. Harris has a physical red zone presence. He could be a threat there as well. He controls his pace and his tempo well, and he's progressed in his route running. He's used to a heavy workload. A lot of qualities to me to scream fantasy football upside flex play when it comes to Harris. This past season, he led the nation in receiving yards per game. So, when we look at a guy that can make some big plays, he can handle a volume, I think that is Tre Harris. He's not going to be a first-round wide receiver. We'll see where he goes. A high-end NFL comp for me is Nico Collins. More realistic is Alec Pierce. But again, those two guys, obviously there's a gap between their skill levels and their talent. But both of those guys are guys that make big plays. Guys that we would be extremely comfortable, flexing for fantasy football. Obviously, Nico Collins more of a wide receiver one, but we see the qualities of what they bring. And I think that's what Tre Harris out of Ole Miss can bring at the end of the day. For the tight end position, kind of similar to Ted McMillan, Tyler Warren. It seems like he is a no-brainer prospect that a lot of people like to fade for the sake of fading. Massive 6'5", 265 tight end. This past season, he had one big season, which some will say, well, that's a red flag. But at Penn State, he finished for the country for all positions, number 2 in receptions with 104. And number 7 in receiving yards with 1,233. Warren has alignment versatility, is a capable lead blocker. He can line up as an H-back and even ran the ball in the Wildcat at times. Ball skills paired with toughness give Warren upside in contested catches and racking up the yards after the catch. Warren has quick feet for having a massive frame, and he plays through contact at ease. He's extremely confident. He has a high football IQ. This is just a guy that looks like the total package at the tight end position. He's a do-it-all tight end. He's massive. He has a huge receiving statistical profile. The comps that I've seen, high-end Jeremy Shockey, more realistic like a Dallas Goedert. But I think Tyler Warren is going to draw great draft capital, and he could be the next rookie to have a breakout fantasy season year one. And we look for those guys in fantasy football. You know, we look for that Brock Bowers, that Sam Laporta, that just instantly is a guy in your lineups. And I think Tyler Warren has that type of DNA. The other tight end I want to mention is Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. In 2024, he led the nation all positions in both receptions and receiving yards. And both stats were FBS tight end records. 117 catches for 1,555 receiving yards. Great hands, makes the tough catches. He has catch timing and instincts. He makes plays in traffic, competitive running after the catch. He fights through contact and has great vision. He has positional versatility with great route running. He gets to his top speed quick and can stretch the field. Tons of upside with his big play ability. Record-breaking season just shows he is an elite receiver for a tight end. I think he's ready for the NFL. I like the Jonnu Smith comp. Some people have not liked it because of some differences athletically, but I think Harold Fannin Jr., again, is a guy that just has this massive receiving profile coming out of college, just unbelievable season. And when we look for tight ends for fantasy football, what do we look for? Guys that can catch the ball, guys that can be reliable pass catchers in their systems, and that can be Harold Fannin Jr. Will it be year one? We'll see. But again, when a guy has those receiving traits, you look for that in fantasy football. So